back, everyone. As I promised earlier, I'm back with another encounter. This is going to be a longer one as there's multiple parts, but I'm not going to make you wait like other channels do and upload one part at a time. I waited until he sent all of it, and I'm going to put it all together so you can get the entire story in one upload. Now, this poor guy has been through a lot, and I'm not only honored that he got in touch with me, I'm also shocked that he's actually willing to tell this to anyone. Buckle up, y'all. This is a wild one. Before I begin, if you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it with us here on the channel, all you have to do is reach out to me. Send me an email. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. My email is in the description of this video. Now that's enough blabbing from me as usual. Go ahead and hit the like button now so you don't have to do it later, because you are going to want to do it after hearing this. I hope everyone's locked in. Let's go ahead and get into this encounter. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights. And let's get started. This guy's name is Caleb, and this is the first email that I received about his encounter. The subject is, it started when I was just a kid. Hey Reels, I've been listening to all kinds of Dogman encounter channels for years now, and a lot of them, I have to say, hit pretty close to home. Something's been following me since I was a kid, and I don't know if this is the right decision, but my wife seems to think that it will help. By the way, she loves your channel, and she's the one that actually found it. The first time I saw it was back in 2002 when I was 11. Now, I'm not great with words or storytelling. I'm just a regular guy, so this is how everything played out. I grew up in Lebanon, Missouri, small town off I-44. Back then, me and my buddy Timmy used to mess around in the woods near my house, which was part of the Mark Twain National Forest. I'm not sure of the exact date, but it was in October of 2002, and it was a Saturday. It was chilly and really cloudy, I remember that day. And we'd been out all morning, throwing rocks and skipping them in the creek, pretending we were some kind of famous explorers out there. Around noon, Timmy had to go home for lunch, but I stayed out. Dumb kid stuff, you know. I wandered deeper into the woods, maybe a mile from my street. It was near the spot called Patty Creek. I found this little clearing. I've never seen anything like this before. I noticed right off that it was quiet. There was no birds or anything around, and I stumbled across a deer, and it was tore up really bad. Like I said, I'd never seen anything like that before, especially at my age. The amount of gore was disturbing. This wasn't like some coyote would be able to do this. This thing's guts were spread out all over the place. Its head was twisted in a funny position, like something big had just grabbed it and pulled it apart. The blood was still wet, and there were these huge claw marks in the dirt. It freaked me out. But I was just too curious to leave at that time. After a few minutes of me trying to be Sherlock Holmes and investigate a crime scene, I started hearing a heavy breathing from the trees behind me. I turned around, and this thing was standing about 30 feet away. It had to be at least 7 feet tall. It was covered in dark gray fur like a wolf, but it was patchy. It had bald spots like it had been in a few fights and been injured. The head was also that of a wolf, with a giant long snout, tall pointed ears, and its eyes were yellow, glowing even in the daytime. And they were staring holes straight through me. It had these low, hanging, long, skinny arms with hands that were identical to a large man. I didn't look to see if it had claws or not, but I'm assuming by the damage done to the deer that it definitely had some sort of nails. One of the weirdest things is its back legs that it was standing on were bent backwards like a dog, but they were all muscle. I literally couldn't move an inch. I was just standing there, holding my breath. It was just breathing really heavy like it had been running or fighting. It wasn't growling. It didn't seem to want to come after me. It just stood there, staring at me. I felt like it was debating, though, on what it should do, honestly. I shifted my body weight and snapped a twig that was under my foot. It was really loud, and as soon as it happened, that thing tilted its head and I took off. I ran all the way home, crying like a baby. I got to my backyard, slammed the door, and told my mom that I had saw a bear. She didn't buy it at all, and was very worried and concerned. She said bears did not look like what I had described. That night I heard something outside my window scratching like nails across wood. I peeked out, and sure enough I saw those yellow eyes in the trees past our fence. I stayed up all night under my blanket. The next day I told Timmy what happened, and he would not shut up and wanted me to show him the deer. I was scared, and I know it was dumb, but kids will be kids, and he finally talked me into going back out there. But the deer was gone. There wasn't a bone, there wasn't anything left. Just the dirt all scratched up where it used to be. Of course, after that, he thought I'd made the whole thing up, but I knew, and I still know now, what I saw. That was the start. I've been seeing it ever since. I figured you'd want to hear this, and there's more, a lot more. If you're interested, email me and let me know. Thanks for reading this, and you're doing a good job with your channel. Me and my wife love listening at night. Caleb. And of course, you guys know me, I could not email him back fast enough. The second email from Caleb, subject, it found me again. Hey Reels, I was glad to hear back from you, and I'm happy that you want to hear the rest of this. I think my wife might have been right. I do feel like this is helping to put this out there for other people to hear. It helps a lot that I know that you're not judging me while you're reading this. You believe me. I have no reason to make this up. I'm not the type of person that wants people to think that I'm some kind of lunatic that sees werewolves in the woods when they're not there. Anyway, here's the next part of what's been going on with me and that, what I call, thing. One of your previous videos reminded me of it, the way the person described the eyes that was in the woods staring at them. It gives me chills all over just thinking about it. Anyway, this happened in 2007, 5 years after the kill site. I was 16, still living in Lebanon, and thought that I'd left all the kid stuff behind. I guess I was wrong. By then, I was pretty heavy into dirt bikes. I had a 2001 Yamaha YZ250 two-stroke. It was loud as hell and fast. Man, I loved that bike. I miss it. Me and a couple friends from school, Jake and Matt, used to ride out in the Mark Twain forest tearing up the trails near Hazel Green. July 14th, 2007. It was hot, about 90 degrees. It was sticky, even in the shade. We'd been out there since early that morning, hitting jumps, climbing hills, racing each other. My bike was running perfect. It was jetted, just right. The thing was screaming. Around 4 p.m., the guys wanted to head back. They were beat, and Jake's chain was loose on his bike. I told him I'd catch up. I wanted one more run on this loop trail that we called the Ridge Trail. I took off alone, full throttle, roosting up dirt. Those trails were narrow, and it was full of pine and hills. It was real quiet back there when the bike is not roaring like a demon. I stopped near this overlook to take a breather. I shut the bike off, just listening to the woods. And God struck me dead. I don't know how, but I think that this is the same creature. I can't be certain, but it's something that I can just feel. Down the hill, maybe 40 yards away, the same damn thing from when I was a kid. It looked even taller now, probably around 8 feet. It was much leaner. The fur was still gray, but thinner. The same yellow eyes still looking at me, standing there between two trees. Hands hanging low, just like before. Legs bent back. My heart literally dropped into my feet. I thought I had imagined all that back then. But there it was. I kicked my bike over and it didn't want to start, at first. It backfired a little and I thought I'd flooded it, but finally I got it started. And I figured I could outrun this thing. These bikes, if you know anything about them, they're pretty fast. I tore down the trail wide open, trying to keep from killing myself by hitting a tree. I looked back when I could. I didn't see it at first. I thought I was in the clear. Even over the sound of my bike, I could hear this thing crashing through the woods. It was fast. Fast enough that it could keep pace, and it was off to my left. I looked over, and it was running on all fours, weaving through trees like a damn wolf, but bigger. And it was kicking up leaves and dirt all over the place. It was easily keeping up with me, and I was doing 40 to 50 miles an hour through those trees. It was keeping up no problem. I hit a straight stretch, pinned it. I had to be close to 70 miles an hour, maybe more. I thought I was going to lose it, then it cut across right in front of me and stood up on two legs, staring down at me. I slammed the brakes on, skidded, almost dumped the bike. It growled deep and it rattled my bones like it was mad that I ran away. I revved the engine loud, hoping to scare it. It just stepped closer, and as it's moving, I'm watching its hands. It's got these huge hands with these long fingers, and it's flexing its fingers, making a fist, and then opening its hand back up. Jake and Matt must have heard my bike and wondered what the hell I was doing. They came roaring back on their bikes, yelling. Before it was in their view, it turned, dropped back down on all fours, and took off into the woods, gone in a matter of seconds. I found some claw marks on a tree later, deep and fresh. The front fender on my bike had the same type scratches on the fender. I don't even know when the hell that happened, but it's insane to think that it got that close to me and I didn't even know it. I hope it was just from tree limbs. I'm going to go ahead and convince myself that's what happened. The guys actually caught a small glimpse of this thing as it was running away, and they are convinced that it was just a bear. I didn't say anything because I didn't want them to know. I just didn't think they would believe me, and I didn't want to look like I was some weak, scared little kid. While, deep down, at that time, I was completely terrified and felt alone. You'd be crazy not to be scared. I rode home shaky, looking behind every tree and every bush on the way. I kept the bike in the garage and didn't touch it for weeks. I told my dad, and he said I was seeing things, but I saw it as clear as day. I don't understand parents that don't believe their children when they see something like this. Now I knew that thing was out there, and I also knew then that it knew who I was. A lot more happened after this, too. Let me know when you want me to send the rest. Caleb. Hey, buddy. I hope that all of this isn't too long for you to use for an upload. I'm trying to make it as short as possible, so it won't be so much for you to read. The next time I encountered this thing, or I think this is definitely the same one that's following me, was in August of 2015. I was 24 at the time. I just want to let you know your videos keep me and my wife up at night, but they also make me want to get all of this out and get it done. Like I said, this was 2015 when I was 24. I had moved away from Lebanon by then, but this thing still found me. I'm just going to lay this all out how I can remember it. After high school, I got sick of small-town life. I sold my bike. Too many bad memories, honestly. And my friends had moved on and stopped riding, so I didn't have anyone to ride with anyway. I moved to Springfield, Missouri, about an hour from Lebanon. I got a job at a warehouse loading trucks. It was pretty decent pay for someone my age. I thought I'd left that Dogman crap behind me. I hadn't seen it since that dirt bike chase in '07. I figured it was done with me, and I was definitely done with it. I wanted to believe that I'd outgrown all of this like a bad dream. August 15th, 2015. My mom called and said my little sister, Tara, was having a birthday party when she turned 18, and she wanted me home for her party. I drove down that Friday and got to Lebanon around 6 p.m. Place didn't change at all. Still the same town. Quiet streets, woods creeping up everywhere. Tara wanted a bonfire out back with all of her friends, near where our yard meets the Mark Twain. The same spot that I'd seen those yellow eyes as a kid. We set up after dark. It was me, Tara, my folks, and a few of her friends. I stacked some logs, got the fire going, cracked open some beers. It was warm, maybe 75 degrees, pretty pleasant out, really. Crickets were loud as hell. I was feeling good, catching up with everybody, tossing sticks in the fire. Around 10 p.m. or so, Mom and Dad went inside. Too many mosquitoes. That left me, Tara, and her friend Lauren out there sitting on lawn chairs roasting marshmallows. The woods just instantly stopped and shut off, and I knew right then what was happening. All the sound was just popping from the fire, and I felt that old familiar chill, like I did when I was a kid. I wanted to not look, but I knew I had to. I looked up and started scanning the trees, and it didn't take me long to find those yellow glowing eyes. They were maybe 20 yards back in the trees. The same ones I've seen at the kill site, the same ones from the trail. My stomach was just in knots. Tara was laughing about something, just oblivious, didn't even notice. I stood up slow, trying not to spook them, staring at the eyes. This thing stepped out just enough for me to see it. It was definitely getting bigger. It was taller than before. This thing, at this point, had to be 10 feet. Its fur was still gray, but it just kept getting thinner, showing this leathery skin underneath like it was getting old. It was still shaggy, long snout, ears, everything looked the same. It just looked as if it was getting old. It just stood there watching me. Lauren saw me staring and asked what was wrong. I mumbled something about a deer, but then Tara screamed. She saw it too. She dropped her stick. Marshmallow hit the dirt. Lauren turned and froze. The thing growled, this low, deep, menacing, shaking the ground type growl. It started moving towards us. I yelled at the girls to get inside now. I grabbed a giant burning log from the fire and held it up like a torch. This thing stopped and just tilted its head like it remembered me. I could smell it. It smelled like wet dog and something rotting, the same stink from years ago. Tara and Lauren ran for the house, yelling for my dad. I started trying to back up, gripping as tight as I could to hold on to my stick. It slowly dropped to all fours, smooth, and circled the fire, keeping me in sight. It moved like it knew the yard, weaving past the old swing set. I chucked the log at it, but missed and hit a tree. Sparks flew everywhere, and it snarled, showing me its teeth. Dad came out with a shotgun, Mom behind him, screaming my name. He fired a warning shot into the air, and the thing instantly took off, crashing through the brush, and it was gone. I found all kinds of tracks the next day. Giant canine tracks, way deeper than any dog could have made. Tara swore that it wasn't a bear and said it looked like a werewolf. Dad said it was a coyote that somehow learned to stand on its hind legs. Just a big coyote, some kind of freak of nature. Yeah, right. He didn't see this thing's eyes. We all stayed up all night that night with the doors locked and the lights on. Nothing happened. The next day I drove back to Springfield, a little bit shook up, but determined to put this behind me like I had before. I broke down and told my girlfriend at the time about it. I told her all of it, everything that I've just told you. She thought I was drunk or crazy, but I knew it was the same thing. I knew it had followed me for all these years. I started wondering why. What did I do? That kill site back in '02 keeps coming to mind. Maybe it didn't like the fact that I saw it. There's just a little more to the story. I'm not done completely yet. I'll send you the other email when I get time. Again, I apologize for the length, but I want to get it all out because I'm not telling this story again. Once I get this out, I'm putting it behind me permanently. Thanks, Reels. I'll be talking to you. Caleb. All right, Reels. Are you ready to finish this? This will be the last email involving my encounter with a dogman. I just want to say again, your channel is the only reason I'm doing this. No one else gets it. This last encounter happened in September of 2023, 2 years ago, when I was 32. I moved far from Lebanon, Missouri by then. But this thing dragged me back one more time. I'm not much for fancy words, so like before, here's how all this ended, or at least I hope that it's ended. After the bonfire incident in 2015, I couldn't stay anywhere near Lebanon. I quit my warehouse gig in Springfield, packed up and moved to Asheville, North Carolina in 2016. I love it here. There's mountains, breweries, and I'm far from those woods. I got a job driving delivery truck for a hardware store. I met a wonderful girl named Sarah, settled down. I thought I'd finally shook that Dogman. I hadn't seen it since that night. I figured 700 miles between us was enough to keep us apart. Oh, how wrong I was. It was on September 10th of 2023 when my mom called. My dad was sick. He was in pretty bad shape, heart-related stuff. And they needed help fixing up the house because they were thinking about selling it. It was just too big and too much upkeep for them as they were getting older. I took a week off work and drove back to Lebanon in my Tacoma. I got there pretty late, probably around 9 or 9:30 at night. The house was quiet except for the crickets, as always. It was the same old place, the same woods out back. Dad was weak, Mom was stressed, so I stayed for a few days patching the roof and hauling some junk away. But I kept my eyes on the trees the whole time. But there was nothing. It started feeling normal for once, but on September 13th, I couldn't sleep. Dad was in the hospital and Mom was with him. The house was empty. I was sitting on the back porch with a beer staring at the forest. That's when I started hearing that familiar breathing sound from the tree line. But it was a lot more raspy now, kind of gurgling sounding. I looked up, dreading what I was about to see, but I was ready for it. I was also praying that I was wrong. There were those damn eyes again. They weren't as bright now as they used to be, but they were still glowing the same exact yellow ones from '02 and '07 and 2015. My gut was twisted. It didn't hesitate. It went ahead and stepped out where I could see it. This thing was old, its gray fur now hanging loose off of its body, probably 8 feet tall, but now it seemed to be hunched over. It was all scarred up on its snout, and its ears were ragged with chunks taken out of them. This thing looked like it had been through hell. Its legs bent back. They seemed to be trembling a little, like it was worn out. It smelled the same, though. Wet, dog, and rot. It was faint, but it was still there. And its growl, it didn't seem to have the same ferocious sound this time. Now, don't get me wrong, it was scary as hell, but it just wasn't like it was before. I still feel this was the same damn thing that had been following me for 20 years. This is when something snapped. This is when I had had enough. I was tired. I grabbed my dad's old shotgun from the hall closet, 12-gauge loaded with buckshot, and a flashlight. I walked out back yelling, even though it was gone now. What do you want from me? I never saw it, and I feel like I knew where this needed to end. I remember that kill site from when I was 11, the bloody deer. I figured that's where it all started, where Patty Creek cuts the Mark Twain. I decided that's where it should end as well, for one of us. I drove out 10 minutes down Highway 64 and parked near the creek trail. The moon was half full, giving me just enough light for me to see. I hiked in a mile, shotgun ready, flashlight shaking a bit. I found that clearing, the same exact spot, but it's a bit smaller now with overgrown brush, and there's no deer this time, just quiet. Sure enough, as I expected, this thing came loping out of the trees on all fours, slow, like it knew that I'd be there, like it had been waiting for me. It slowly stood up to its full height on its back legs, never taking its eyes off of mine. I shouted at it. I saw you back then, is that it? Are you mad that I know you're here? It growled and took a step. I raised the gun, but I didn't shoot. Something just stopped me. I looked in its eyes, and there wasn't a look of anger. It just looked tired and pitiful, like it had been stuck with me too. I lowered the gun and said, I'm done running, just leave me be. It stared at me for a second like it understood. Then it dropped down low, turned around, and walked off limping, disappearing into the dark. No crashing, no howling. It was just gone. I sit there until dawn, waiting. Nothing. I drove back, finished the work on the house that I needed to do, and I left Lebanon for good on September 15th. I told Sarah, which is now my wife, when I got to Asheville, she thinks I settled some old ghost. Maybe I did. I haven't seen it since, and the nightmares have left. No eyes. That kill site started it. I saw one of those things when I wasn't supposed to, and it just couldn't let go until I faced it. That's my theory, anyway. I don't know exactly what happened or why it followed me for so long, but that's my story. 20 years of dealing with a dogman. Done. Now I hope this can help someone, I really do. Because when I was going through all of this, I wish that I could have found someone to help me. You're a good man, Reels, and I'm honored to know you. Don't let them stop you from doing what you're doing, and eventually, trust me, they will. Stay ready, stay vigilant, and take your own advice. Keep your head on a swivel. It's been a great experience and a pleasure to have these conversations with you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, Reels. Truly. Caleb. Well, legends, I told you that this was a wild ride. Was it, or was it not? Now, as far as having a theory of why this thing terrorized this poor guy for 20 years, I'm not one of these YouTubers that's going to sit here and fill your head full of nonsense and pretend like I know why that all happened. I have no idea. Of course, I could guess and speculate all day, but that's all I can do. That's all any of us can do. His theory is probably as close to being what I would guess myself. I think he saw something that he wasn't supposed to, and pissed the Dogman off. Or you could go deeper and say that he was targeted for some reason. Who really knows? The most important thing to me is that he's safe, and he's able to share this with all of us. Hopefully that'll be the last of his encounters. What I find most interesting about this story is, if this was indeed the same creature the way he described it each time he saw it, it seemed to have been aging as a human would. That is something I've often wondered, is how these things age or if they even do. I guess his encounters answered my questions. If, in fact, this was the same creature, which there's no way of knowing for sure. But since this was a long upload, anyway, you guys probably don't want to hear me ramble on at the end, so I'll just go ahead and shut up and end this upload. Before I do that, I want to sincerely thank Caleb, and I know you're listening. Thank you so much for sharing this. It was an honor and a pleasure to talk to you, and I would like to say become your friend. It doesn't have to be Dogman related, brother. If you want to talk, you have my number. You have my email. Either one will work. Get a hold of me anytime. Take care, brother. And tell your wife I said she's a legend. Yes, Sarah, I'm talking to you. Take care, guys, both of you. As for the rest of you wonderful, amazing individuals, I hope that you've somehow happened to make it this far. If you have any theories or thoughts on what happened here with Caleb, remember, no one knows for sure, so any idea is a good idea. If you have any thoughts, just drop them in the comments, because I'll be curious to read what some of you guys think about this. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of any uploads in the future. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member of the channel and helping out just a little, it's totally optional, and the link will be in the description of this video. That's going to do it for tonight, y'all. I'll try to be back tomorrow with some more new encounters. Until then, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, good night.